Somebody filmed their Chipotle orders side by side, once from the app, once from the counter. Same order, same store, and the app version looked like a completely different meal. That comparison video pulled in over 16 million views, and it got so big, Chipotle's own CEO had to publicly respond to it on the record. Turns out that's not an isolated case. Your food has been quietly shrinking at chain after chain, while the price stays exactly the same, or climbs even higher. I went through more than a dozen major fast food chains, real customer photos, real numbers, real complaints, to find out who's doing it and how bad it's actually gotten. One of these is going to surprise you. And that Chipotle story gets even worse when you look at the actual math behind it. Back in 2014, you could get a full Chipotle meal, burrito, bowl, tacos, whatever, for under $7 on average. Today, that same meal runs $10 and up. So people are already paying more. And now a chunk of them are saying they're getting less on top of it, especially through the app. That combination is exactly what turns quiet frustration into a viral call-out, with 16 million views behind it. McDonald's has been at the center of the shrinkflation conversation more than almost anyone, and the Filet-O-Fish is basically the poster child for it. Customers have been sharing photos for months of the sandwich, looking noticeably smaller than what they remember, with the fish barely covering the bun. One post that went around described it as looking like a slider now, instead of a full sandwich. And the top comment on it was basically, you pay more, you get less. That sentence alone captures the entire shrinkflation problem in one line. But it's not just the fish sandwich. One Reddit post that went viral showed a cheeseburger so thin, someone called it flatter than a pancake. Customers report the same pattern across the menu. Thinner patties, fries that feel skimpier in the same size box. And McDonald's isn't completely ignoring it either. The company has actually launched something called the Best Burger Initiative, aiming to roll out quality upgrades nationwide by the end of 2026, which is a pretty clear signal that leadership knows something needs fixing. But because McDonald's is the biggest name in fast food, every shrinkflation story eventually circles back to them anyway. When the biggest chain in the country does it, it sets the tone for what customers start expecting from everybody else too. Chick-fil-A built its entire reputation on consistency. That's kind of the whole brand. You know exactly what you're getting every single time you order. Which is exactly why it stung more when customers started noticing their chicken fillets looking smaller than they used to. Fans have posted photos of what look like half-sized fillets sitting inside thinner buns. And it's not just customers saying it either. Some former employees have chimed in online, claiming portions internally are no longer meeting the standard they used to. That's a different kind of evidence than a single angry customer complaint, because it's coming from people who actually worked the line. Beef and chicken costs have been climbing hard this year. Beef and veal prices alone are projected to keep rising over 6% in 2026, on top of what they already went up. So chains are under real financial pressure. But here's the thing about a brand like Chick-fil-A specifically. When your entire identity is built on reliability, even a small shrink hits differently than it would for a chain that customers already expect less from. And despite all this, Chick-fil-A actually still ranked first in a major 2026 industry survey for its chicken and fries categories, which tells you something too. Customers can be annoyed about portions and still show up, at least for now. Wendy's used to be one of the chains people pointed to for actually feeling like you got your money's worth. Big portions, solid value menu, the whole where's the beef energy baked into the brand for decades. Lately, customers say the fries and nuggets have both quietly shrunk. Not a dramatic difference you'd catch in one visit, but enough that regulars who order the same thing every week started noticing the bag feels lighter. And when you connect that to what's actually happening with ingredient costs right now, it makes sense. Potato prices and beef costs have both been putting pressure on margins across the entire industry. And Wendy's has been dealing with both at once, since fries and beef are two of their biggest menu categories. The tricky part here is that a small reduction in fries or nugget count is almost designed to slip past you. Nobody counts their nuggets. Nobody weighs their fries. That's actually the whole point, and we'll get into exactly why that matters in a bit. Okay, this one might be the most painful for people who genuinely loved this chain. Five Guys built its entire identity around excess. The fries overflow the cup. They throw an extra scoop in the bottom of the bag just because. It was basically famous for being the opposite of a skimpy fast food order. Now customers are saying that reputation is fading fast. Some people describe the small fry size as barely covering the bottom of the cup, which, if you've ever actually eaten at Five Guys before, sounds almost unbelievable. That was never the vibe. One customer even said they used to get stuffed after one burger, and now they can finish two and still be hungry, despite actually being in better shape than before. That's not proof on its own, but it lines up with what a lot of other people are reporting too. Analysts point to soaring oil and potato costs as the reason behind it, which tracks with what's happening industry-wide. But the reputational risk here is bigger than at most other chains, because Five Guys wasn't competing on price. It was competing on abundance. People paid a premium specifically because they were getting more. Take that away quietly, and you're not just shrinking a portion. You're kind of breaking the entire reason people chose you over a cheaper option in the first place. KFC's chicken sandwich has become a favorite example in the shrinkflation conversation, because the visual proof is honestly kind of hard to argue with. Customers have been posting photos showing the chicken patty sitting in the dead center of the bun, with a noticeable gap of empty bread on every side. That's the kind of thing that doesn't need a chart or a stat to make the point. You just look at the photo and go, yeah, that's not right. When a piece of chicken is visibly smaller than the bread it's supposed to fill, that's not a subtle shrink. That's the kind of thing that gets screenshotted and shared, specifically because it looks a little absurd. And this pattern shows up across other KFC menu items too, according to customer reports, not just the flagship sandwich. Even their drink sizes have gotten called out as part of broader menu overhauls, which suggests this isn't a one-off recipe tweak. It's a broader cost-cutting approach across the whole menu. Popeyes has taken heat specifically on its side dishes. Mac and cheese, red beans and rice, mashed potatoes, the stuff that usually rounds out a combo meal. Customers have been documenting smaller portions on these sides for a while now, with videos showing the actual scoop sizes looking noticeably reduced compared to what people... Remember, sides are actually a smart place to cut if you're a company trying to protect your margins without touching your headline item. Nobody orders Popeyes specifically for the mac and cheese. It's the chicken sandwich people are there for. So shrinking the side dish quietly saves money in a spot customers are less likely to obsess over, at least in theory. Except that theory's kind of breaking down in the social media era because people are filming everything now. Doesn't matter if it's the star of the meal or the side that came free with the combo. If it looks smaller, somebody's going to post it. Now let's talk about Taco Bell, because honestly, out of every chain on this list, Taco Bell fans might be the loudest right now. The beefy 5-layer burrito used to be one of their most reliable menu items. These days, Reddit threads are full of photos showing what people describe as a sad, thin burrito. That's mostly tortilla. One popular post basically said, "Rest in peace to the burrito everyone used to know." It's not just the burritos either. Customers report thinner chicken melts, lighter nacho fries, less cheese overall across the menu, and it's not stopping at the food. One Redditor posted photos of 2 different Taco Bell drink cups from orders placed a week apart, one noticeably smaller than the other, and claimed the smaller one actually cost a dime more. Taco Bell hasn't publicly addressed most of these specific claims, which honestly seems to be making customers even more frustrated, since silence tends to read as confirmation online whether that's fair or not. Subway's had a shrinkflation reputation for over a decade at this point, ever since they quietly walked away from the $5 footlong deal back in 2012. That one decision still gets brought up constantly, over 10 years later, which tells you how much it damaged trust with customers. Subway did eventually bring back something similar to that deal, a fresh value menu offering sandwiches for $4.99. Except there's a catch. Those are 6-inch subs, not footlongs. So it's a $5 deal in spirit, but half the sandwich people actually associate with that price point. Customers online weren't fooled for a second. Plenty of people online still say Subway will always be the $5 footlong place in their memory. In a slightly bitter way, Burger King's Whopper has been part of the shrinkflation conversation for a while too, with plenty of speculation online that the burger's just not what it used to be. But Burger King's actually one of the few chains on this list making a visible public effort to fix its reputation instead of staying quiet about it. In February 2026, they switched from the usual paper wrapper to a cardboard box for the Whopper, specifically so the burger doesn't get smashed and squished during delivery or in the bag. The idea is you get a fluffier bun, a patty that isn't flattened, and toppings that still look fresh instead of soggy by the time you open it. It's not exactly a portion size fix, but it is one of the only examples on this entire list of a major chain actually responding to the complaints with a real, visible change instead of just staying silent. Jersey Mike's has a slightly different story than everyone else on this list, and it's worth mentioning because the cause is different too. A lot of customers online link their shrinking sandwiches directly to a private equity takeover of the company. Private equity firms have a reputation in general for prioritizing fast growth and short-term profit over the quality standards that made a smaller company successful in the first place. Whether or not that's the actual internal reason, there's now a noticeable amount of online content specifically about the changes people have noticed since the ownership shift, which makes Jersey Mike's a pretty clear example of how shrinkflation complaints don't always come from ingredient costs alone. Sometimes they trace back to who owns the company in the first place, and then there's Arby's, which might have the single funniest and honestly saddest complaint on this entire list. One customer ordered a chicken slider and said what they got back looked more like a chicken nugget stuffed inside a piece of bread. Another commenter joked that you'd need to take a literal bite of chicken along with your bread just to actually taste any meat. Arby's has also drawn comparisons to Subway's whole $5 foot-long saga, with customers predicting Arby's is heading in the exact same direction, shrinking the product while keeping the same corporate messaging about value. Even Starbucks hasn't escaped this. Their bacon, egg, and Gouda sandwich has been specifically called out as noticeably smaller than it used to be, showing up on multiple lists of shrinking menu items alongside the usual fast food suspects. And it's not just fast food chains either. Dunkin's Donuts have gotten the same complaint, described by customers as feeling like shadows of what they used to be, which tells you this isn't just a fast food problem anymore. It's spreading into coffee and breakfast chains too. And once you start looking at breakfast and coffee chains through this lens, the pattern gets even harder to unsee. A sandwich that used to feel like an actual meal now barely counts as a snack. And it's happening at chains that built their whole morning routine reputation on being reliable. The same coffee, the same pastry every single day for years. When that kind of muscle memory gets disrupted even slightly, customers notice fast, because breakfast orders tend to be the most repetitive, habitual purchases most people make all week. You don't think twice about your usual order, which is exactly why a small shrink there stands out so much once you finally do notice it. Here's the thing that might actually surprise you the most. None of this is actually new. Restaurants have been quietly doing this for over a decade. It's just gotten a lot more visible lately because of how easy it is to film and post everything now. Back in 2022, when inflation hit a 40-year high, government data showed the cost of food away from home had climbed over 7% in a single year, and restaurants responded exactly the way they're responding now. Not just with higher prices, but with smaller portions hiding behind the same packaging. Subway was already cutting back the amount of meat in its rotisserie chicken wraps and sandwiches back then. Domino's quietly dropped its boneless wing orders from 10 pieces down to 8. Burger King made the same cut to their nugget meals around the same time. Even small independent spots got caught up in it. One salad shop in North Carolina had to shave 2 ounces off their pound-sized salads just to keep the math working. So this isn't some brand new corporate trick that just showed up in 2026. It's the same playbook. Restaurants have been running since the last time inflation spiked hard. They're just running it again on basically every chain at once. And this time customers have phones out and comparison photos ready before the ink's even dry on the new menu. Here's where this gets bigger than any single chain though. It's not just anecdotal frustration anymore, there's actual survey data backing this up. A 2024 Lending Tree survey found that roughly 3/4 of consumers now consider fast food a luxury purchase because of how expensive it's gotten. 3/4 fast food. The entire category was built on being the cheap, fast option. Now most people surveyed are putting it in the same mental category as eating out at a nicer restaurant. So you've got prices climbing across the board. And on top of that, in a lot of cases, portions shrinking too. That's a double hit. And it's exactly why shrinkflation complaints have been blowing up across every major chain at basically the same time this year. So remember that question from the start. Why shrink the food instead of just raising the price outright? Here's the actual answer, and it comes down to basic psychology. Raising a price is something every customer notices immediately. The menu board says a different number, and your brain flags it instantly. But shrinking a portion by 10 or 15%, almost nobody catches that in real time. You'd have to be weighing your fries or counting your nuggets, and nobody's doing that. Companies know this. It's a well-documented pattern across the entire food and retail industry, not just restaurants. Cutting size quietly causes way less immediate backlash than cutting quality or raising the sticker price. And the math behind it actually makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint, even if it feels sneaky from the customer's side. Industry analysts point out that small reductions spread across thousands of daily orders can offset millions of dollars in rising ingredient costs without a single line on the menu board ever changing. One fewer nugget here, a slightly smaller scoop of fries there multiplied across every location, every day across an entire year. It adds up to serious money saved, while each individual customer barely notices anything different about their own single order. That's the entire strategy in one sentence. Tiny changes, massive scale, and just enough plausible deniability that no single customer feels like they have solid proof. At least until enough people start comparing notes online at the same time. Except, here's the part that's actually changing right now, in 2026. That strategy used to work because shrinkflation was hard to prove. Now everybody's got a phone, a scale, and a platform to post on. The Chipotle story only became a real problem for the company because customers started doing exact side-by-side comparisons and posting them for millions of people to see. That's a completely different world than it was even 5 years ago, when a shrinking portion could slide by mostly unnoticed. And you can actually see the consequences playing out already. Chipotle had one of its roughest years in company history, right after that shrinkflation backlash hit. And it's hard to separate that from the portion size controversy, given how directly customers connected the two. Now, you'd think there'd be at least one chain out there that's completely dodged all of this. And for a while, a lot of people pointed to Raising Cane's as exactly that example, a chain that kept its portions predictable, while almost everyone else was cutting corners. Same fries every time, same chicken finger count. That kind of consistency became an actual selling point for them. But even that story's gotten more complicated lately. Some Reddit threads have started making the exact same complaint about Cane's now, saying their chicken pieces look like they've shrunk down to almost half the size people remember. So even the chain that built its whole reputation on reliability isn't fully immune to this conversation anymore, which honestly might be the most important takeaway of this entire video. Nobody's safe from this if the cost pressure keeps going the way it's going. There's actually a whole new habit forming around this too. And it's worth mentioning because it's part of why this problem keeps getting bigger instead of quietly fading out like it used to. People have started doing what basically amounts to citizen audits of their own fast food orders, weighing burgers on kitchen scales before eating them, measuring fry cups with a ruler, keeping old receipts specifically so they can compare a new order side by side months later. None of this used to happen on any real scale. Now there are entire online communities built around exactly this, people trading photos and measurements like it's a hobby, and honestly, for a lot of people, it's become one. That shift matters more than it might seem at first. It means the era where a company could shrink a product by a few percent and just quietly ride it out for a year or two while nobody noticed is basically over. The moment enough people in one of these communities flag the same item, it turns into a post, then a video, then sometimes millions of views, and eventually a headline. Companies used to be able to count on customers not having the tools or the patience to prove anything concrete. Now the tools are just a phone camera and a kitchen scale, and the patience is coming from an entire community built around catching exactly this kind of thing. So the real lesson here isn't really about any one sandwich or any one side dish. It's that shrinkflation used to be the safe, invisible move. In 2026, with everyone filming everything, it's turned into one of the fastest ways to torch the exact trust that got customers walking through your doors in the first place. And based on how many chains just showed up on this list, that trust is getting tested at almost every single one of them right now. If you want to know exactly what's happening behind the scenes at the restaurant chains you eat at every week, hit subscribe. I dig into stuff like this all the time. The stuff nobody's talking about until it blows up.